welcome to Global Dialogue as part of Investonomics on ICICI Direct. On the show today, we have with us famous investor Jim Rogers joining in from Singapore. Jim, a very good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Jim, first up, I wanted to start by asking you, in the midst of the worst COVID second wave, at least in this part of the world, the rest of the world is a mixed bag, while the West seems to have recovered a large part of the damage that was done in the first wave. Some parts in Asia, Africa still seem to be struggling. How are you assessing the situation from a financial assets point of view?
Well, I know you're in India, and from what I read, it's a disaster in India right now. I hope you take care of yourself and everybody around you. What is happening, as you know, it's devastated many economies and many countries and many industries and many companies. Some are handling it less badly than others, but it certainly caused the world economy to slow. But, Samina, if you compare to a year ago when everything was closed, now things look great. I live in Singapore. A year ago, there were no flights. Now there are a few. So everybody says, wow, things are good. Look at all these flights. But that's only because it's in comparison with the disaster of a year ago. Things will continue to get less bad, but it's not over yet.
Jim, financial assets usually are a reflection or preempt what is going to happen to the economy. The Indian equity markets, like you rightly pointed out, were at their worst point exactly the same week a year ago. US equity markets have been rallying higher and higher. A bunch of commodities are doing quite well. What do you feel is the general outlook? I know it's tough to put it in one basket, but if I had to ask you, do you feel like financial assets, equities, commodities, oil, even currencies for that matter, may be on the upswing going ahead, largely because you have central banks once again pumping world economies with lots of free money?
Very perceptive, Samina. Yes, never in world history I'll use America since it's the largest. Never in world history has America printed so much money and driven interest rates so low. Many other countries copied, Japan, England, other countries, and this has never happened in world history. If you ask me, it's not going to end well, but it certainly caused a big revival. As you know, the U.S. stock market's at all-time highs. Many asset classes have gone up a lot. Bonds have never been this expensive in the history of the world. So bonds are clearly a bubble. This never happened in world history, so bonds are a bubble. Some stock markets, parts of stock markets in America, Google never goes down. Amazon goes up every day, 10 cents. Samsung. So some stocks around the world are beginning to form bubbles. Not all. Property in some places, if you go to Seoul or New Zealand, property is clearly a bubble in some places. The cheapest asset class that I can see around the world are commodities. Silver's down 50% from its all-time high. Sugar's down 70% from its all-time high. So the cheapest assets that I see are commodities, but they keep printing money to me. So things are going to be okay, at least for a while, in the markets.
You're right. We'll talk about commodities in a minute. But so if you do believe that real consumption or demand is not keeping pace with the prices some of these stocks worldwide are reflecting, that means it's only a matter of time that we're staring at a correction and a big fall from these levels, right? Do you anticipate that there could be further upside and then a decline? Or do you think we're around the corner from a pretty big fall?
I am not very good at market timing. I suggest you watch your program, you watch your Global View to get market timing. I suspect it's going to go on for a while because even if things calm down in the markets, central banks around the world are going to panic and print more money and put more money out into the system. Remember, Samina, these are not very smart people. They're bureaucrats and academics. well, actually, you in India had one of the best central bankers that the world's seen a few years ago. He's gone now, but he was really, really smart and very good. But most central bankers are not very smart people, and all they know is to print money and to borrow money. And so they'll do that. Eventually, Samina, of course, the markets are going to say, wait a minute, we're not going to play this game anymore. We've seen this movie. We know how it ends. We're getting out. And then it will be too late.
Yeah, we are, of course, staring at a pretty painful situation. I mean, you can't, of course, discount the fact that the world is, at least in India, collapsing around us as we fight a pandemic. I just want to quickly talk to you about India before we move on to, the other asset classes. How do you feel about India right now, Jim? We are, like I keep reiterating, going through a pretty painful second wave. We are anything but the darlings of global investors now. A lot has changed from a lot of conversation about structural reforms that our prime minister was talking about. I think most of us have realized, or at least most people internationally have realized, that that may be far from the truth. How do you feel about the India story? Is it still intact? Is this a pause? Or is it there is a structural change that you're witnessing where India is no longer a favored market for global investors?
Well, Samina, I'm not there. I only know what I read in the press and on the internet, and it sounds like it's a horrible, horrible disaster which is taking place. I mean, I guess you read the same press I do. People are dying in the streets, thousands of cases, people dying, and no hospital beds, et cetera. So it's having a devastating effect in India, perhaps worse than most countries. But the consequence will be that the debt is going to go much, much higher in India. And India already was becoming a large debtor. And I'm afraid that this is going to cause longer lasting problems for India than it will for some other countries. I mean, America, listen, I am not defending America because America's worse. I don't know if it's worse, but it's horrible. Japan, you look at some countries around the world, but this is going to have a long lasting effect in India. I'm American. I have teenage children. I will tell you, Samina, this is a good time to be an old American because I'm getting the benefits of all this and I don't have to pay for it. But my children, oh my gosh, it's not good to be a young American now because they're going to have to pay for it. They're inheriting gigantic debts. And I presume I would say the same about young Japanese and maybe young Indians. I should ask you.
Yeah, well, it's of course we're paying for what we reap. But of course, Jim, and again, let's talk about how you feel because you have the opportunity to invest in Japan. You could, of course, go out and pick up US equity markets. Unfortunately, or fortunately for Indians, we can't invest more than $250,000 per person per year outside this market. So our large exposure is and will remain Indian equity markets. But you don't have that problem. How do you view India? Is this a buy right now for the 5 to 6 year period of time, or is it a complete avoid?
Well, it's a very good point and good insight. Normally, one is supposed should invest when there's a disaster going on. And unfortunately for me, I haven't looked closely enough at India. I've just been reading the headlines. And one of the things I've learned for many years is when you see horrible headlines, don't just say, oh, that's too bad. Then take the next step and see if you should invest. And I haven't done that yet, Samina, with India. And thank you for reminding me. I will now go and do some more research. Normally you buy in a disaster.
Yeah. And more importantly, while of course, we are going through what we are on the pandemic side, Indian equity markets this time around, like the rest of the world, actually holding up. So that is relatively impressive, curious. I don't know what to say.
Well, the U.S. stock market is at all-time highs because they're printing so much money. I mean, everybody's printing huge amounts of money. I know of very few stock markets that are collapsing anywhere in the world because there's so much money everywhere.
And the free money has to find its way to countries like India as well. Let's move away from equities. And I want to ask you about Bitcoin. I mean, it would be unfair to all our viewers if you don't talk about Bitcoin, right? How do you feel about it? I've read some of your articles, and you're pretty clear that it's not an asset class you're going to be going out and buying. But still, just for the sake of the viewers, for people, young people who are watching us, because they seem like they've struck gold. Actually, maybe not. They've struck diamonds. When you talk about Bitcoin, it's made a lot of people millionaires, at least in the last 1 year. How do you feel about Bitcoin, Jim?
Well, yes, Amina, there are also hundreds of cryptocurrencies which have disappeared and gone to zero. We don't hear much about them. I mean, hundreds of them have literally already disappeared, and a lot of people have lost a lot of money. Yes, and I know people who are making a lot of money in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I'm not one of them. I have never bought nor sold. My longer term view is that if, by the way, money is going to be on the computer someday. If you go to China, you cannot take a taxi with money now. You have to use your computer money. You cannot buy an ice cream. Everyone, America and everyone else, is working on computer money, and all money will be computer money eventually. Now, the question then is, and the crypto people say yes, and our cryptocurrencies will be the currency. My view is that if cryptocurrencies become successful as currencies, governments will stop it. Governments do not like losing control. Governments like having monopoly. I cannot imagine that the US government is going to say, okay, this is now money. Our US dollars are on the computer. But if you want to, you can use this other thing on the computer. That's not the way most governments think and work. They want to keep their monopoly and their control. So I would suspect that eventually, if it becomes successful as money, it will be outlawed. If it's just a trading vehicle, why not? Some people can trade it for the end of time. Not me, because I'm not a good trader. But if you're a good trader and you want to trade it, do it. As long as it's not illegal, do it.
I mean, I think what's worked for Bitcoin, which probably didn't work for the other sort of cryptos, is the fact that Tesla went out and bought a lot of Bitcoin. Of course, it's liquidated 10% of that in the last few days. Talking about governments, Jim, I'm glad you bring that up, because the Indian government has tried various ways to sort of restrict or encouraging rather youngsters from trading Bitcoin. But it has largely failed, to be honest, right? Do you think the world governments are also talking about the same sort of measures now? Hester Pierce of the Securities Exchange in the US recently stated that if governments would be foolish to try to ban Bitcoin, because that would be like banning the internet or shutting the internet down. I mean, that's the kind of supremacy Bitcoin is currently enjoying, right?
Well, that's an interesting point. But if governments want to do it, governments normally can do it. If government says it's illegal to smoke marijuana, most people don't smoke marijuana. Sure, of course, some do, but most don't until it's legal. And by the way, marijuana is now becoming legal in America.
Well, if it could happen to marijuana, it could happen to Bitcoin, right?
It certainly can. It certainly can. But I'm talking about if it becomes successful as money. As I said before, if they want to trade it, I don't see any reason people can't trade it forever, as long as it's a viable trading thing. But if you want to use it as money, then the government's going to have to make it legal. And I don't know any government that will take Bitcoin. If you want to pay your taxes, Amina, I don't think you can go up to Delhi and say, here's Bitcoin for my taxes. I don't think you can go to Washington, D.C. and say, here, I'm paying my taxes with Bitcoin. That hasn't happened yet, and it may happen someday. But Samina, they love the control that they have with controlling money.
Yeah.
Maybe they're all going to change.
We'll have to wait and see for that. But you didn't mention at the start of a conversation, the only asset class that's cheap and attractive to you is commodities. Gold in the last couple of weeks has seen a good sort of bump up or some interest coming back. Bitcoin or gold? That's my first question. As an investment and as a trading vehicle? And secondly, what is the outlook on gold for the rest of 2021? Where do you see this year end? Especially given the fact that there is an inflation during the rounds, the dollar could potentially be under pressure. How do you play gold?
I do own gold. I do own silver. I have not bought any for a while. I'm waiting for the correction. I'm not good at market timing. Maybe I'll watch Global View to find out when you tell me to buy the silver and the gold. I will buy more silver than gold, by the way, when I do, because silver is down 50% from its all-time high. Gold is down only maybe 15%. So silver is cheaper at the moment, but I'm not buying either at the moment. I will buy more before this is over, and I will probably buy a lot because the next time we have serious problems, they're going to be very serious. So, Mina, in 2008, we had a problem because of too much debt all over the world. Well,
Yeah.
since 2008, the debt has, oh my gosh, everywhere has skyrocketed, and it's skyrocketing every day. So the next time we have a problem, it's going to be very, very serious. And people probably will head to gold and silver. I'm an old peasant, and all of us old peasants know we want some gold in the closet. We want some silver under the bed when things go wrong. Governments say, don't, don't, don't. You know, the Indian government says, gold is no good, silver is no good. Well, okay, but all of us peasants, we don't take it that way. We want some gold, we want some silver, and I will be buying more because I know before this is over, gold and silver are going to go up a great deal because of the problems that are coming.
Jim, you said that silver is down 50%, but you're still not buying more just yet. So I would imagine you're trying to indicate that there's further downside before there is a recovery.
I will say again, Samina, I am not good at market timing. I have no idea. Maybe I should be buying it right now.
Yeah.
I should ask you, but I am waiting because my feeling is that both of them, the correction is not over yet. But I'm not any good at this. I should ask you, when should I buy silver? When should I buy gold?
I wish I knew these answers right as well. Now, I'm not good at timing too. But talk about crude, Jim. There's been some sort of recovery in crude in the last couple of weeks. It trades at I think, close to a 2-month high yesterday. I don't know what demand we're getting bullish on, but I believe it's bullish demand outlook that's supporting crude. How do you feel about crude? Can we be heading back to pre-COVID levels this year?
To which levels?
Pre-COVID.
Well, in my view, gold, the all-time high on silver is $50. In my view, that will happen again in the next 3 or 4 years. The all-time high on gold is roughly $2,000 per ounce. In my view, it will go much higher than that over the next 3 or 4 years, because when we start having these serious problems and they print more and more money, all of us peasants are going to say, I want some more silver. I want some more gold. No, I would expect that silver will go back to its old highs again sometime. I expect that gold will certainly make nice new highs someday. Governments can say, the Indian government can say to everybody, sell your gold, sell your silver. You can't, but sell it to me because I want some more gold and I want some more silver.
Yeah. Jim, what about crude oil? That trades at a 6-week high. Yeah, there's conversations that the demand is looking bullish. How do you feel about crude oil?
Well, I bought more energy not long ago. Crude oil is down 50% from its all-time high. We had a big bubble in fracking, which caused a lot of extra supply to come in, but the fracking bubble has popped now. Before, I mean, if you could spell fracking, people would write you a check and give you money. But now everybody realized, oh, wait a minute, you got to pay your bills, you got to pay your debts, you got to make money. Fracking's still around, but the bubble has burst. And in the meantime, known reserves of oil around the world continue to decline. Yes, we have alternative energy coming in. Yes, there will be more of it. But in the meantime, reserves are declining, and I bought more. Who knows?
Right. Jim, you indicated that sugar as well is down 70%. And I want to talk to you about agriculture for a while. You've been bullish on the space for quite some time now. Would you be looking at the commodity exchange, or would you be looking at this as a key market, or which you see is an emerging sort of strength? And India, while I know you don't seem very convinced about the Indian equity markets, would you keep that aside and just look at the agriculture space in India if you want to get exposure to this sort of vertical that you seem to like or this theme that you like? How would you play it? Would it just be through commodities or would you also take exposure to agricultural economies or agricultural sectors in countries like India?
Well, Serena, I would love to invest a lot more in India, but speak to Delhi, it's foreigners are not allowed to buy and sell. You don't have a freely convertible currency. It's not legal for foreigners to buy a lot of things in India. If I were India, of course, I would make the markets open this afternoon, right now, for currencies, commodities, stocks, everything. But Delhi doesn't think the way I do. So it's hard for me to think a lot about buying. I buy some when I can, but fortunately or unfortunately, I have to buy my commodities elsewhere, which I do. If you know a good agricultural company, I urge you to buy all you can in India or anywhere for that matter. If it's a tractor company or a fertilizer company or a seed company, the best way, of course, is to buy some land and become a farmer. I'm not going to become a farmer. I would be horrible at it. But if you think you could be a good farmer, buy the land and become a farmer, even in India, and you will make a lot of money.
But it's a bit late to make those career choices now for me as well. But very lastly, while I wrap this conversation up, Jim, do you think this is going to be a tough financial year for most investors? And also, in order of your preference, list down your most favored asset class or asset from your most favorite to your least favorite.
Well, my most favorite is agricultural index. I buy a commodity ETF, agricultural ETF on the New York Stock Exchange, because as I've said, agriculture has been a disaster for a long time, and I expect agriculture to be very good for a while. The symbol is RJA, but it's on the New York Stock Exchange, and it is an agricultural index. Now, if you're really good at agriculture, maybe you will buy sugar futures or something. I am not good enough at that, certainly not right now. My least favorite would probably be to buy, I don't know, Tesla or Amazon or one of these, these stocks that are in a bubble in the US that are going through the roof. You mentioned Tesla before. Tesla doesn't make money on cars. Tesla makes money on other things. There are people who would say to you that Tesla is built on phony accounting. I'm not saying that, but I do know they don't make money on cars and they make money elsewhere. But stocks like that are booming in the US right now. So I would say those are my least favorite assets.
Hi, Jim. You have a great day. Thank you very much for talking to us. Stay safe and we'll speak to you soon.